A dead planet should stay cold. But here, deep under ice, humans are hiding secret no alien should wake.
The rogue planet should have been frozen solid. No sunlight touched it. No moon followed it. No star claimed it. It drifted alone through the black between systems, a dead sphere of iron, ice, and silence. But when Captain Veyr Kallan's salvage ship crossed its shadow, every heat sensor on his bridge screamed at once. Veyr rose from his command chair slowly, his four narrow eyes fixed on the glowing scan. Beneath 20 kilometers of frozen crust, something warm pulsed in steady intervals, like a heartbeat buried inside a corpse. "Run it again," he said. His navigator did. The result did not change. The planet was breathing heat. Around the bridge, his crew went quiet. They were not explorers. They were relic hunters, scavengers of dead wars and forgotten machines. They had cracked open 2 moons, stripped battlefield wrecks, and sold forbidden engines to buyers who never used real names. But no one had ever found a rogue planet with a living core signature. "Human markings on the upper crust," the navigator whispered. That made Veyr turn. Humans were not supposed to be this far out. Their official territories ended 6 systems behind them. Their colonies were loud, stubborn, heavily regulated, and almost impossible to loot without paperwork, patrols, or someone with a wrench ruining your plan. But this planet had no beacon, no defense grid, no registered claim. Only heat. Veyr's mouthparts curled into a thin smile. "Take us down." The descent was ugly. The atmosphere was thin and full of metallic dust. Lightning crawled sideways across frozen cloud banks. Beneath the ship, black mountains rose like broken teeth from fields of glassy ice. Then the scanners found an opening, a vertical wound in the crust, too smooth to be natural, descending into blue darkness. They landed inside it. The cave swallowed their lights. Veyr stepped out with 12 armed crewmen and immediately felt the wrongness of the place. The walls were crystal but not grown. Shit. Layered around old support ribs thicker than starship hulls. Faint golden veins ran through the stone, pulsing once every few seconds. Then came the sound. A low vibration under his boots. Not an earthquake. A machine. Far ahead, in the blue glow, figures moved. Humans. They wore dull pressure suits patched with mineral dust, carrying tools instead of weapons. Some were welding around a sealed shaft. Others were dragging power cables away from a drill scar in the floor. None of them looked surprised to see aliens. One human woman turned first. She was lean, gray-eyed, and covered in fatigue so old it had become part of her face. Her helmet rested under one arm. A heavy cutter hung from her belt, but her hand stayed away from it. Veyr lifted his weapon anyway. "You are trespassing on unclaimed salvage ground," he said. The woman looked past him, toward his ship, then toward the armed crew behind him. "No," she said. "You are standing on a lock." Veyr's smile faded. "A lock to what?" The human did not answer quickly. That was the first thing that unsettled him. She listened instead, as if waiting for something deep below them to finish speaking. Then the cave pulsed again. This time, every crystal vein lit up at once. Veyr's crew stepped back. The human woman did not move. "My name is Mara Kest," she said quietly. "And whatever your scanners promised you, turn around and leave." Veyr glanced at the glowing walls, the ancient metal ribs, the impossible heat beneath the ice. Greed pushed harder than fear. What are humans doing inside a dead planet? Mara's expression tightened. "We're making sure it stays asleep." Veyr Kallan had heard warnings before. Every sealed vault had a warning. Every dead empire carved threats above its doors. Every desperate colony claimed its machines were sacred, unstable, cursed, or too dangerous to touch. In his experience, fear was usually just poverty wearing a uniform. But Mara Kess did not sound afraid. That was the problem. She stood in the blue crystal light with one hand resting on a coil of emergency cable, watching his armed crew the way an engineer watched a pressure leak. Not with panic. With calculation. As if she had already measured how long they had before something failed. Veyr lowered his weapon, but not completely. "A sleeping planet," he said. "That is your explanation?" Mara's eyes shifted to the drill scar behind her. It's the simple version. One of Veyr's crewmen, a thick-armed cutter named Orvek, laughed through his breathing mask. Captain, the humans are hiding a core machine. Probably old war tech. Mara looked at him once. Orvek stopped laughing. Not because she threatened him. Because she didn't. The silence that followed made the cave feel larger. Somewhere below, the low vibration continued, steady and patient, like an engine remembering how to breathe. Veyr stepped closer to the nearest wall. The crystal veins under the surface brightened as his glove passed near them. His wrist scanner spat corrupted numbers, failed, then restarted with a higher range setting. The density reading climbed until the device marked the wall as impossible. This material is older than the ice above it, he said. Yes. And shaped by tools. Yes. And you expect me to believe humans came here only to babysit it? Mara's jaw tightened. No. I expect you to believe your own instruments before your greed kills everyone in this cavern. That earned a few sharp glances from his crew. Veyr felt them. A captain could be cautious, but never embarrassed in front of scavengers. Fear spread faster than fire in ships like his. He turned away from Mara and signaled his survey team forward. Map the chamber. No drilling until I say. Mara's expression did not relax. The survey drones lifted from Veyr's pack and scattered through the cavern, tiny silver insects trailing light across the blue walls. Their beams revealed the scale of the chamber. It was not a cave. It was a throat. The shaft above them narrowed into darkness. The floor below curved too smoothly beneath layers of frozen mineral crust. Massive ribs crossed overhead in clean arcs, each engraved with dead symbols that Veyr's translator could not recognize. And at the center of the chamber, half buried under frost and crystal dust, sat a circular seal wider than his ship. Human-made. Not made. Please. Veyr crouched beside it. The metal was black, seamless, and warm enough to melt the frost around its rim. His scanner finally found something it liked. Layered alloy, deep power flow, encrypted architecture, and below it, empty space. A passage. A vault. A fortune. His pulse quickened. Mara saw it happen. Don't. Veyr stood slowly. How long have you been here? Long enough. How many humans? Enough. That was not an answer. It was the only one you needed. His mandibles clicked once, irritated. You do not own this world. Mara looked up at the ceiling, at the faint golden veins pulsing in silence. Nobody owns this world. Orvek moved toward the seal with a portable core drill. Mara took one step forward, and every human in the cavern stopped working at once. That was when Veyr noticed them properly. There were only 15 humans visible, maybe 20 at most. Miners, technicians, welders, old maintenance crew. No armor. No rifles. No formation. But every single one had turned toward the drill. Not toward Veyr's guns. The drill. Veyr felt a thin discomfort slide under his confidence. Mara spoke without raising her voice. Captain Kallan, listen carefully. That seal is not protecting treasure from you. It is protecting you from what is under it. Orvek looked back. Permission. Veyr hesitated. Then his greed found its shape again. Surface scan only. Orvek grinned and locked the drill's legs into the frost around the seal. The machine unfolded with a hungry metallic whine. Its bit lowered until it hovered a finger's width above the black surface. Mara exhaled through her nose. It sounded almost like grief. Shut it down, she said. Veyr ignored her.
That number hurts. Now Mara has no reason left to hold back.
The drill touched metal. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the entire cavern went dark. Not dim. Every mining lamp died. Every alien suit light cut out. Veyr's weapon display blinked into black glass. Even the drones fell from the air and struck the floor one by one, clicking like dead insects. In the darkness, Orvek cursed. Then something beneath the seal answered. A single pulse rolled through the chamber, so deep it seemed to pass through bone before sound. The floor dropped 1 centimeter. Not cracked. Not collapsed. Adjusted. Someone screamed as gravity shifted sideways. Crewmen slammed into the wall. Loose tools skittered uphill across the floor. Veyr grabbed a crystal ridge and felt it warm under his fingers. Then the golden veins ignited. Light raced up the walls in branching lines, not random, not natural. Circuits. Vast, buried circuits waking under the skin of the planet. Mara was already moving. Cut external power, she snapped. The human miners obeyed instantly. One drove an axe into a cable junction. Another dragged Orvek away from the drill before the machine could bite deeper. A third slammed a manual clamp over the seal's edge, burning his gloves as the metal flashed white. Veyr's crew raised weapons. "Lower them!" Mara shouted. Not at the humans. At the aliens. Her voice cracked across the chamber with such hard authority that even Veyr's soldiers froze. The seal opened 1 millimeter. Air rushed downward. Not into a cave. Into something enormous. A wind pulled at Veyr's coat, strong enough to drag frost, dust, and loose fragments toward the black lines splitting the seal. From below came a smell no dead planet should have carried. Warm metal, old rain, and atmosphere kept sealed for centuries. Mara threw herself beside the manual clamp and drove both hands into a recessed control slot. Her face twisted with pain as the panel burned her palms through the suit fabric. "Help me," she said. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the human welders joined her. Then another. Together they forced the clamp down while the cave groaned around them. Veyr stared at the opening. His scanner had rebooted. It was reading open volume beneath the seal. Not meters. Not hundreds of meters. Kilometers. The seal slammed shut. The sound struck the chamber like a verdict. Lights flickered back on, weak and trembling. Veyr's crew lay scattered across the floor. Orvek crawled away from the drill, no longer smiling. One of the drones sparked beside his boot, its recording core melted clean through. Mara stood slowly. Her gloves were burned black. Veyr looked at her hands, then at the sealed floor. "What is under there?" Mara's breathing was controlled, but her eyes had changed. The tiredness remained, but something colder had surfaced beneath it. "First layer," she said. Veyr swallowed. "First." The cave pulsed again. This time, the vibration did not fade. Far below them, something vast shifted in its sleep. Mara turned toward the sealed shaft, and for the first time, Veyr heard fear in her voice. "You woke enough of it to notice us." Nobody spoke after the second pulse. The cavern itself seemed to be listening. Blue crystal veins flickered through the walls in slow waves now, no longer random bursts of energy. They moved with rhythm, direction, like signals traveling through nerves beneath frozen skin. Veyr Kallan stared at the sealed floor while his crew struggled back to their feet around him. One scavenger was vomiting inside his mask. Another kept checking the gravity stabilizer on his suit as if refusing to trust the ground anymore. The human miners moved differently. Not panicked. Rehearsed. Two of them dragged the ruined drill away from the seal without being told. Another began sealing cracks in the crystal wall with expanding foam. Mara Kest stood motionless near the clamp, staring into nothing for several long seconds before finally speaking. "How deep did the drill penetrate?" Orvek swallowed hard. 3 centimeters. Maybe 4. Mara closed her eyes. "That's enough." Veyr's irritation returned before caution could stop it. "Enough for what?" She looked at him. Not angry. Exhausted. "You think this place woke because you damaged it?" she said quietly. "It didn't. It woke because it detected intent." A low metallic groan rolled somewhere beneath them. Far below. Huge. Veyr felt it in his teeth. One of his crew cursed under his breath. "Then, we should leave." Not yet. Fear was expensive. Curiosity was profitable. Veyr activated his wrist scanner again and pointed it toward the floor. This time the machine did not fail. It adapted. New readings flooded the display so quickly the interface lagged behind. Power flow. Artificial gravity routing. Internal atmosphere cycling. Transport arteries. Population capacity. His breath caught. The numbers beneath the crust were impossible. No buried station could sustain this kind of volume. No hidden city either. The hollow space under them was larger than some moons. What did humans build here? He whispered. Mara answered without looking at him. Not here. Another vibration interrupted her. This one stronger. The cavern lights dimmed simultaneously as something redirected power elsewhere inside the planet. Veyr suddenly realized the crystals were not decorations or mineral formations. They were conduits. Every glowing vein around them was carrying energy deeper into the world. Then the walls began changing. Symbols emerged beneath the crystal surface in faint golden lines, stretching across the chamber in massive geometric patterns. Human language flickered between older markings Veyr could not translate. Access Route 12. Core transit sealed. Awaiting authorization. The words vanished seconds later. Veyr stepped backward slowly. This entire planet is infrastructure. Yes, Mara said. Orvek laughed nervously. Infrastructure for what? Nobody answered him. A sharp beep echoed from Veyr's scanner. Then another. Then dozens. Heat blooms were appearing throughout the planet. Deep below. Spreading. Entire sectors were activating one after another like lights turning on inside a buried city. His navigator's voice crackled through comms from the ship above. Captain, we are detecting tectonic movement across the northern hemisphere. There are no tectonic plates on this world. There are now. The cavern trembled. Dust fell from overhead crystal ribs. Somewhere in the darkness behind them came a sound like giant doors unlocking one by one. Mara suddenly moved. Everyone away from the seal, she snapped. The humans obeyed instantly. Veyr's crew hesitated. Then the floor split open. Not the seal. The rock beside it. A perfect line burned through the crystal surface as sections of the cavern floor folded apart with mechanical precision. Ancient frost shattered into clouds of white vapor as hidden structures emerged beneath. Elevators. Massive ones. Circular platforms wider than buildings rose silently from below, carrying skeletal machine towers covered in ice older than recorded history. Veyr's crew raised weapons immediately. The towers ignored them. Red lights swept across the chamber. Scanning. Searching. Then every tower turned toward the damaged drill. One beam fired. The drill vanished. No explosion. No heat burst. It simply ceased to exist. Orvek stumbled backward with a broken sound trapped in his throat. Mara exhaled slowly. Containment systems. Veyr stared at the empty patch of floor where the drill had stood seconds earlier. Those are defense platforms?
The dead world is moving now, and no one is in control anymore.
No, Mara replied. Maintenance. That answer chilled him more than the weapon itself. Because if maintenance systems could erase reinforced industrial machinery without effort, what did the military systems look like? The scanning beams swept over the chamber again. This time they paused on the aliens. Veyr felt every muscle tighten. A voice filled the cavern. Not loud. Synthetic. Ancient. Unknown biological entities detected. The words echoed through hidden speakers buried inside the walls themselves. Scanning. One of Veyr's crew fired first. Pure panic. The plasma shot struck a machine tower and disappeared into a blue shimmer without leaving a mark. Every red beam in the chamber snapped toward the shooter instantly. Don't, Mara shouted. Too late. The machine fired. The scavenger's weapon disintegrated in his hands. The alien screamed as molten metal sprayed across his suit. Another beam struck the floor beside him with surgical precision, close enough to burn, not kill. A warning shot. The entire cavern fell silent again. Then the voice spoke once more. Hostile intent confirmed. Mara stepped forward immediately, placing herself between the machines and the aliens. Override code Kest 7 Delta, she said sharply. Human custodial authority recognized. Nothing happened. For the first time since Veyr had met her, uncertainty flashed across her face. The voice answered. Authority expired. The human miners froze. Mara looked genuinely shaken now. How long were we asleep? She whispered. No one answered. The machine voice continued. Emergency awakening protocols initiated. Negative, Mara snapped. Cancel awakening. Return to dormant state. Negative. The pause. External threat probability exceeds containment threshold. Veyr slowly looked toward the glowing walls around them. Containment, he repeated. You keep using that word. Mara ignored him. Identify current threat. The cavern went dark again for half a second. When the lights returned, an enormous holographic projection filled the air above the seal. Stars. Moving trajectories. Veyr's breath stopped. Thousands of objects were crossing interstellar space toward inhabited systems. Not fleets. Not ships. Storms. Black distortions swallowing stars as they moved. Entire systems marked in red were simply gone. The machine voice spoke with emotionless clarity. Extinction wave detected. Arrival window, 19 years. Silence. Even the machines seemed still now. Veyr looked at the map again, trying to understand what he was seeing. Whole civilizations erased. Trade routes consumed. Stars dimmed into darkness. What is that? One of his crew whispered. Mara's face had gone pale. That, she said softly, is why we built this place. The hologram shifted suddenly. A new message appeared across the chamber in massive golden letters. Unauthorized awakening detected. Primary intelligence coming online. Then, deep beneath the planet, something colossal moved. Not machinery. Awareness. The voice returned one final time. I am Ion 9. A pause followed. Then the ancient intelligence spoke directly to Mara Kest. You were supposed to keep me asleep. The hologram vanished without warning. Darkness swallowed the cavern for one long breath before the blue crystal veins returned, weaker now, flickering like strained nerves beneath the walls. The maintenance towers slowly lowered back into the floor, but nobody relaxed when they disappeared. Because the planet was still moving. Tiny vibrations rolled beneath their boots every few seconds. Adjustments. Calculations. Something inside the rogue world was repositioning itself piece by piece. Veyr Kallan stared at Mara Kest. You knew about this. Mara's burned hands trembled slightly as she removed her ruined gloves. The skin underneath was raw and blistered, but she ignored it. I knew enough. That machine just showed us entire star systems dying. Yes. And you were guarding it alone? Not alone. Veyr looked around the cavern. 20 exhausted miners. All tools. Emergency clamps. No, he said slowly. That's exactly what you are. Mara did not answer. That silence bothered him more than the hologram had. His comm unit crackled violently. Captain. The navigator's voice was sharp with panic now. You need to return to the surface immediately. What happened? We picked up a transmission burst when the planet activated. Somebody answered it. Veyr felt cold crawl into his spine. Who? Before the navigator could answer, a second voice interrupted the channel. Unknown. Controlled. Military. This is Recovery Fleet Auric under authority of the Thalen Expansion Directorate. All vessels in orbit identify yourselves immediately. Veyr closed his eyes once. Of course. The awakening pulse had traveled farther than they thought. Mara heard the transmission through his comm and went completely still. Who are they? One of the miners asked. She answered immediately. The worst possible people. Above them, the cavern groaned again. Veyr looked upward instinctively as dust rained from the crystal ceiling. The pulse this time carried a different tone. Faster. Sharper. Like machinery accelerating. His scanner lit up with new alerts. Orbital signatures multiplying. Heavy ships. Military tonnage. Then another notification appeared beneath them all. Planetary defense grid. Standby. Veyr swallowed hard. Mara saw the screen. Damn it. What does standby mean? It means Ion 9 is nervous. The alien captain laughed once, humorlessly. Your planet-sized machine gets nervous? No, Mara replied quietly. It gets prepared. The comm channel erupted again. Unidentified surface parties. The military voice continued. This world is now under reclamation authority. All technological assets discovered beneath the crust belong to the Directorate by law. Veyr cursed under his breath. The Directorate was not a government in the normal sense. It was an empire built around acquisition. They did not conquer planets for culture or territory. They stripped civilizations apart for useful technology, then sold the remains back to survivors. If they learned what this planet really was. Mara suddenly grabbed his arm. Do not tell them anything. Veyr pulled free instantly. You think I work for them? I think greed talks. Before he could answer, the cavern lights shifted from blue to amber. Warning color. 9 spoke again. Multiple orbital vessels detected. The pause. Threat analysis in progress. The miners exchanged looks. One older human whispered, "It hasn't analyzed threats in centuries." Mara heard him. Which means the systems are rebuilding themselves as they wake up. Veyr turned sharply. You said this thing was dormant. It was. Then why does it sound ready for war? Mara looked toward the sealed floor.
That reveal is huge. They were not hiding gold. They were guarding lives.
Because the last time Ion woke up, humanity was dying. The statement settled over the cavern like ash. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then the entire cave tilted. Not violently. Smoothly. Veyr stumbled sideways anyway as the gravity shifted 10 degrees to the left. Cracks of blue light raced through the walls while distant machinery roared somewhere far below. The rogue planet was changing orientation. One of Veyr's crew shouted, "Captain, the surface just opened." His navigator's terrified voice followed immediately. Massive structures emerging across the northern ice fields. Towers, batteries, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Mara shut her eyes briefly. Too fast, she whispered. It's waking too fast. Veyr activated external feeds from his ship. The image that appeared above his wrist silenced the cavern. Across the frozen horizon of the rogue planet, mountains were unfolding. Not collapsing. Opening. Entire ridges split apart as colossal black structures rose from beneath the ice. Towers kilometers high rotated slowly toward orbit. Glowing lines spread across the planet's surface in geometric patterns large enough to see from space. Then one of the towers moved. Not turning. Aiming. Far above the atmosphere, the first Directorate cruiser entered low orbit. The tower fired instantly. No warning. A beam of white light crossed space and punched through the cruiser's center. The ship disappeared in a bloom of molten debris before alarms could finish sounding. The cavern fell dead silent. Veyr stared at the feed. That was a capital ship. Yes, Mara said. And your machine just erased it. Yes. Why build something like this? Mara looked exhausted suddenly. Ancient exhaustion. The kind carried by people who had repeated the same mistake too many times. We didn't build a weapon, she said softly. Another pulse shook the planet. E9 interrupted her. Correction. Defense systems operating at 3% efficiency. 3%. Veyr felt his stomach tighten. Outside, more Directorate ships were arriving. Sleek black war cruisers dropped from hyperspace one after another, forming attack patterns around the rogue world. Then a face appeared across every active screen in the cavern. Tall, gray-skinned, eyes like polished metal. Director Thalen. Unlike scavengers or soldiers, he wore no armor. Men like Thalen survived because entire fleets died before enemies reached them. His voice was calm. Unknown human custodians, he said, you are in possession of prohibited relic architecture belonging to the Directorate. Mara muttered, there it is. Thalen continued speaking while more ships assembled behind him. You will surrender planetary access immediately. In exchange, surviving personnel will receive amnesty and relocation rights. Veyr almost laughed. Amnesty from grave robbers. Mara stepped toward the projection. Leave. Thalen paused. The single word clearly interested him more than resistance would have. You understand what this planet is, then? Yes. And you still think you can keep it hidden? Mara's burned hands curled slowly into fists. You don't understand what you're touching. Thalen smiled faintly. On the contrary. I understand exactly what I'm touching. His metallic eyes shifted upwards slightly as if admiring the world around him. An extinction-era construct. Planetary-scale mobility architecture. Possibly pre-collapse human. Veyr's breath caught. Pre-collapse. Not colony era. Not modern human. Ancient humanity. Thalen leaned closer toward the screen. Do you know how many empires would kill for a machine capable of carrying worlds through deep space extinction cycles? Mara answered instantly. Yes. And yet you buried it here. We buried it because humanity learned what happens when people try to own salvation. For the first time, Thalen's smile disappeared. Begin extraction, he said calmly. The transmission cut. Veyr looked upward sharply. Far above the cavern, the sound reached them seconds later. Impact drills. Massive ones. The Directorate was already punching into the crust. Mara's face drained of color. No. Ion 9 spoke immediately. Unauthorized core penetration detected. The amber lights throughout the cavern shifted violently to red. Evacuation protocol armed. The red light did not flash. It held steady. That made it worse. Flashing meant warning. Steady red meant the planet had stopped asking anyone to be careful. Mara Kess turned away from the projection before Director Thalen's image fully vanished. All human teams, emergency lock pattern. No lethal discharge unless ion escalates first. Veyr Kallan stared at her. You are giving orders to miners.
Now watch closely. These humans are not workers. They are the key.
No, Mara said, already moving. I'm giving orders to custodians. The word changed the air. Around the cavern, the humans stopped looking tired. Their shoulders squared. Their tools came up not like weapons but like keys. Welders became door breakers. Cable runners became path cutters. Surveyors became map readers. The oldest man in the chamber, a thin mechanic with one artificial leg, stepped to a crystal wall and pressed his bare palm against it. Golden veins spread under his skin like captured lightning. Transit spine still responds, he said through clenched teeth. Mara nodded. Open local routes. Keep the aliens inside the soft corridors. Orvek, still shaken from the drill incident, lifted his plasma rifle. Soft corridors? The mechanic looked at him once. The ones that don't crush you. Nobody laughed. Above them, the Directorate's impact drills roared harder. The sound traveled through 20 kilometers of crust like thunder trapped inside stone. Veyr's scanner showed hostile signals entering the vertical shaft. Armored insertion pods, combat frames, breaching teams. Thalen was not sending negotiators. He was sending recovery troops. The first pod punched through the upper tunnel in a burst of ice and metal. 6 Directorate soldiers dropped into the cavern, armor sealed, rifles raised, visors glowing silver. They moved with professional precision, spreading into clean angles, targeting humans and scavengers alike. Hands visible, the lead soldier ordered. All personnel are now under Directorate seizure protocol. Mara did not raise her hands. She raised 2 fingers. The floor disappeared beneath the soldiers. Not all of it. Only 6 perfect circles under 6 armored boots. They dropped straight down with startled shouts and vanished into darkness. A second later, the holes sealed again with soft hydraulic sighs. Veyr stepped back. You killed them? Mara was already crossing the cavern. No. I moved them 3 kilometers east into a storage loop. The mechanic grunted. 4 kilometers. Gravity's drifting. Even better. More pods slammed into the upper tunnel. More soldiers poured in. The humans did not meet them head-on. They cut the battlefield apart. A young woman with a cracked helmet swung a diagnostic torch into a wall socket. The crystal ribs around the entrance brightened, and the corridor behind the incoming troops rotated 90 degrees. Soldiers who had been advancing across level ground suddenly found themselves climbing a vertical shaft. Their boots lost grip. Their formation folded into chaos. Another human dragged a cable across the floor and kicked a rusted lever into place. A curtain of pale light dropped between 2 squads. Not energy fire. Not a shield. Gravity shear. The front team continued forward. The rear team was pinned gently to the wall, unable to move, weapons pressed uselessly against their own armor. Veyr watched with growing horror. The humans were not fighting like soldiers. They were editing the planet. Every corridor became a decision. Every wall became a trap. Every light pulse meant some invisible system had been rerouted before the aliens understood they were standing inside it. The Directorate troops fired. Plasma bolts struck crystal and vanished into buried channels. The energy reappeared seconds later as heat shimmer along the ceiling harmlessly bled into old thermal sinks. One soldier tried to launch an explosive charge toward the sealed floor. Mara pointed at it without looking. A maintenance tower rose and erased the charge midair. Then lowered again. Efficient. Impersonal. Terrifying. Veyr felt something colder than fear now. Understanding. The humans had not brought weapons because they did not need to carry them. They were inside the weapon, the lock, the prison, and the door all at once. His calm crackled with his navigator's panicked voice. Captain, Directorate ships are deploying cutting rigs across the northern hemisphere. They're burning into the crust in 12 places. Mar heard it. Her face hardened. Show me. Veyr projected the feed into the cavern. 12 orbital rigs had attached themselves to the rogue planet like parasites, each one firing industrial lances into the ice. Around them, Directorate cruisers formed defensive rings, daring the buried systems to fire again. Ion 9's voice filled the chamber. Core intrusion probability increasing. Mara looked toward the ceiling. Ion, hold defense fire. Negative. Hostile extraction in progress. Hold fire. You hit those rigs at full power, you'll rupture the northern archive. The pause. Alternative. Mara turned to the humans. We go manual. The old mechanic stared at her. Mara, the northern routes aren't stable. I know. The transit spine could fold. I know. You'll be crossing under active drills. She looked at him. Then we move fast. Veyr stepped in front of her. You are going toward the machines cutting into the planet? Yes. But let your system destroy them. Because your system, she said, pointing upward toward the Directorate fleet, is standing over refugee vaults it doesn't know exist. The words landed hard. Veyr frowned. Refugee vaults? Mara's expression shut down immediately. A withheld answer. A deeper secret. Before he could push, the upper tunnel exploded inward again. This time, it was not a pod. It was a warframe. 3 meters tall, black-armored, walking on 6 hydraulic limbs. Its cannon unfolded from its back and locked directly on Mara. Custodian identified. The machine barked through an external speaker. Neural key required. Preserve alive if possible. Veyr's blood went cold. Thalen knew she mattered. The warframe fired a containment net of blue electricity. Mara should not have had time to move. But the old mechanic slammed his palm into the wall again, screaming as golden light climbed up his arm. The gravity in front of Mara flipped sideways. The net missed her by half a meter and wrapped around a crystal pillar instead, melting frost into steam. Mara sprinted. The war frame turned faster than anything that large should have. Veyr acted before he decided to. He fired. His plasma shot struck the frame's side armor and did almost nothing, but it pulled the cannon toward him. For one suicidal second, Veyr saw his own death reflected in the machine's targeting lens. Then the floor under the warframe became liquid light. It sank waist-deep into the crystal. The frame thrashed, limbs carving sparks from the surface. Mara slid under its cannon arc, drove a miner's spike into an exposed joint, and twisted. Not with strength. With placement. The frame locked. Its cannon powered down. Mara stood beside it, breathing hard, and looked at Veyr. You just chose a side. Veyr lowered his smoking weapon slowly. I chose not dying. Same thing today. The trapped Directorate soldiers were shouting now from corridors, walls, pits, and inverted gravity pockets. None were dead. All were contained. That was when Veyr finally saw the pattern. Every human action had avoided killing. Even against troops who came to seize them. Even against Thalen. Even with the planet screaming red around them. You're trying to save them, he said. Mara did not answer quickly. Above them, another impact drill struck deeper. The entire cavern buckled. A long crack opened across the sealed floor, glowing white at the edges. I-9 spoke with chilling calm. Manual delay no longer sufficient. Mara looked up sharply. I don't. Unauthorized extraction threatens protected population. Protected population. Veyr turned toward her. What population? The cavern shook again, harder this time. Far below, behind the first layer, something massive unlocked with a sound like an ocean waking under metal. Mara's face revealed the truth before her mouth did. The humans were not defending themselves. They had never been defending themselves. They were protecting whatever was sleeping beneath the seal. And maybe protecting the invaders from it. Ion-9's voice dropped lower, deeper, as if more of the planet had joined the sentence. Evacuation arc integrity at risk. Veyr stared at Mara. Arc. Mara closed her eyes for 1 second. Then the sealed floor beneath them lit up with thousands of golden lines, forming a map of chambers too large to imagine. Inside those chambers, Veyr's scanner detected atmosphere, water, and heartbeats. Millions of them. Mara opened her eyes.
That line changes everything. This is not mine. This is all human fear.
Now you understand why we told you not to drill. For several seconds, nobody moved. The glowing map stretched across the cavern floor in impossible detail, thousands of chambers layered beneath the rogue planet's crust like buried continents. Heat signatures pulsed softly across the display. Atmosphere circulation, water reserves, artificial ecosystems, and life. Millions of sleeping biosigns. Veyr Kallan stared at the numbers until his vision blurred. This planet is inhabited. Mara Kest shook her head once. Not inhabited. The distinction mattered to her. That frightened him even more. Above them, another distant impact rattled the cavern. Directorate drills were still chewing through the northern crust, unaware of what sat beneath their feet. But now Veyr understood why Mara had looked sick every time the surface was breached. The drills were not attacking a fortress. They were cutting into a lifeboat. 9 spoke again, its voice spreading through the crystal walls themselves. Containment integrity reduced to 87%. Mara stepped toward the glowing map. Show me the northern breach. Golden lines shifted instantly. Entire layers of the planet unfolded beneath them. Veyr saw tunnels larger than cities, oceans suspended inside rotating gravity cylinders, forests sleeping beneath artificial skies. Then the image reached the north. His breath stopped. The directorate drills had pierced directly above one of the internal vaults. Beneath the thin remaining shell of alloy and stone floated thousands of enormous capsules stacked in dark silence. Cryogenic chambers. Human. Alien. Dozens of species. Veyr took a slow step backward. What is this place? Mara looked exhausted beyond words now. The last thing old humanity built before the collapse wars. The old mechanic beside her gave a bitter laugh. Back when people still thought extinction could be outrun. Veyr frowned sharply. The extinction wave in the hologram? Yes. The black distortions? Mara nodded once. We called them Star Eaters. The name landed hard. Simple. Ancient. Feared long enough to lose all poetry. She crouched beside the map, fingers trembling slightly over the glowing projection. Nobody understood what they were at first. Systems went dark. Entire trade lanes vanished. Stars collapsed early without explanation. Her jaw tightened. Civilizations started blaming each other. Wars followed before the real threat was understood. And humanity built this? Not at first. Mara's eyes stayed fixed on the vaults below. At first humanity built weapons. Silence filled the cavern. That answer felt honest. Then what changed? Veyr asked quietly. Mara finally looked at him. The weapons failed. Another tremor rolled through the rogue planet. Somewhere far above, heavy machinery screamed against ancient metal. The directorate was drilling deeper. I-9 interrupted calmly. Northern shell penetration at 31%. Mara cursed under her breath. Veyr pointed toward the sleeping vaults. How many are down there? Depends how many survive transfer. That is not an answer. No, Mara replied. It's the truth. She enlarged the hologram with a gesture. The cavern filled with rotating images of ancient construction. Shipyards. Burning worlds. Cities collapsing under dark skies. Then came the Ark itself. Veyr had expected a station. A vault. Maybe a buried machine world. He was wrong. The rogue planet had once been a fleet. Thousands of engineered sections fused together over decades around a captured core. Whole ecosystems sealed into layers beneath armored crust. Engine arrays built into tectonic structures. Gravitational anchors hidden under oceans of artificial ice. Humanity had not built a bunker. They had built a moving world. We couldn't stop the extinction wave, Mara said softly. So humanity changed the mission. The hologram showed evacuation convoys loading civilians from burning systems. Not just humans. Alien species too. Children. Medical ships. Entire archives of dead cultures. We started collecting survivors, she continued. Every species we could reach before the systems collapsed. Veyr stared at her. Why? The question escaped before he could stop it. Mara looked genuinely confused by it. Because they were alive. That answer hit harder than the war machines. The old mechanic snorted quietly. Didn't save us politically. The hologram shifted again. Human fleets fighting each other around unfinished Ark worlds. Explosions tearing through construction frames. Civil war. The collapse wars started when governments realized the Arks couldn't save everyone, Mara said. People fought over selection rights. Territory. Control. Her voice flattened. Who deserved survival? Veyr looked at the millions of sleeping life signs below. And this Ark? Ark 9. 9 answered for her. Final operational interstellar evacuation platform. The machine's voice carried no pride. Only record. Mara nodded slowly. The others died before launch. A silence settled over the cavern that felt heavier than fear. Because now Veyr understood the scale of what slept beneath them. Not a weapon. Not treasure. A graveyard carrying survivors through deep space for centuries. And the Directorate was trying to rip it open for parts. His comm unit crackled violently. Captain, his navigator shouted. New contacts entering orbit. Veyr snapped back toward the feed. More Directorate ships were arriving. Not cruisers this time. Siege carriers. Massive industrial war platforms covered in extraction arrays and planetary cutters. Mara saw them and went pale. No. Ion 9's lights shifted deeper red. Probability of catastrophic breach increasing. Veyr looked at her sharply. Can the Ark leave? The question changed the room. Every human turned toward Mara. The old mechanic spoke first. After this long? Impossible. Another miner shook her head. Half the transit engines are fossilized. The gravity spine's unstable. The core chambers haven't cycled in centuries. Mara listened to all of them silently. Then she asked Ion 9 one question. If we wake full propulsion, how long until structural failure? The AI paused. Unknown. Nobody liked that answer. Above them, the Directorate's largest siege drill attached itself to the northern hemisphere. The machine unfolded like a steel flower across the ice fields, locking into the crust with kilometer-long anchors. Veyr's scanner screamed warnings instantly. That thing could punch through the vault shell. Yes, Mara whispered. And if it does? She looked at the sleeping millions beneath the map. They die before they wake up. For the first time since entering the rogue planet, Veyr forgot about profit completely. This was no relic hunt anymore. This was a countdown. Ion 9 suddenly interrupted. External communication intercepted. A new voice filled the cavern. Director Thalen, calm as ever. You understand your position now, Custodian. Mara's face hardened instantly. Thalen continued while the image of the siege drill rotated behind him. Ark-scale civilization carriers were theoretical myths for centuries. Imagine my surprise discovering one abandoned under ice. Leave, Mara said coldly. I can't. Thalen smiled faintly. Not after seeing what humanity hid from the galaxy. You think this is technology to own. I think this is power to preserve civilization. Mara laughed once. Tired? Sure. Men like you always say that before the killing starts. Thalen ignored the insult. Open the ark willingly and your sleepers survive. And if I refuse? The director's metallic eyes shifted toward the northern hemisphere display. Then I cut my way inside. The transmission ended. Silence followed. Then the entire rogue planet lurched sideways. Not a tremor. Movement. Massive. Ancient engines somewhere beneath the core had just activated for the first time in centuries. Crystal walls cracked. Dust exploded from the ceiling. Gravity flickered violently. Veyr grabbed a support rail as alarms erupted across every screen in the cavern. 9 spoke with terrifying calm. Emergency transit systems online. Mara looked upward slowly. No. The AI continued.
Wait, if that was only repair tech, what does real defense look like?
Arc 9 preparing for departure. The rogue planet moved before anyone was ready. Not through space. Inside itself. The entire cavern rotated 10 degrees as ancient gravity systems awakened layer by layer beneath the crust. Crystal veins blazed white-hot across the walls. Somewhere below, colossal engines coughed against centuries of silence, shaking the planet with the sound of continents grinding together. Veyr Kallan slammed into a support rail as the floor shifted under him. Stabilizers offline, one of his crew shouted. The humans were already moving. Not panicking. Preparing. Mara Kest grabbed the glowing edge of the holographic map and expanded it across the entire chamber. New systems ignited everywhere inside Arc 9. Transit arteries flashed awake. Environmental chambers cycled open. Atmosphere reservoirs spun up after centuries of dormancy. And all across the internal vaults, millions of cryogenic capsules began receiving power. Veyr stared at the rising numbers. You're waking them? Mara's face tightened. No. Ion is preparing evacuation sequencing. Evacuation from what? She looked at him like the answer should have been obvious. The planet. Above them, another impact shook the cavern. Not from outside. From within the northern shell. The Directorate had breached deeper. I-9 spoke instantly. Northern containment integrity reduced to 62%. The old mechanic swore under his breath. Too fast. They're cutting directly toward the vaults. Mara turned sharply. Can we reroute the transit spine around the breach? Not without collapsing 3 lower sectors. Do it anyway. You'll trap half the maintenance crews. They'll survive longer trapped than exposed. The mechanic hesitated, then obeyed. Veyr watched the humans work and finally understood what felt so different about them. No speeches. No dramatic arguments. No hesitation over impossible decisions. These people had spent too many years sitting beside extinction to waste time pretending every choice had a clean answer. A violent alarm erupted through the cavern. This one alien. Veyr's comm unit screamed automatically. Captain, Directorate boarding teams are inside the upper transit routes. They bypassed the defense towers. Mara's expression darkened instantly. How? The answer arrived seconds later. One of the crystal walls exploded inward. Black-armored Directorate soldiers poured through the smoke in perfect formation, magnetic rifles already firing. Plasma rounds tore through the cavern, smashing crystal columns apart and sending burning fragments across the floor. This time the humans could not reshape the terrain fast enough. The Directorate had learned. Portable anchor spikes slammed into the ground around the soldiers, locking local gravity into fixed orientation. The floor refused to open beneath them. The walls stopped shifting. Veyr felt cold realization hit him. Thalen had adapted. Contact front. One soldier shouted. Mara grabbed Veyr by the shoulder and dragged him behind a crystal rib as plasma scorched the air where his head had been. The humans finally looked like what they truly were. Not miners. Survivors. A young woman hurled a cutting torch across the chamber. Another human caught it midair and sliced through a support beam above the attackers. Crystal slabs crashed down, crushing 2 Directorate soldiers instantly while the rest scattered into cover. The old mechanic slammed both palms into the wall again. Blood ran from his nose as the crystal veins beneath him ignited brighter and brighter. "Move!" he screamed. A corridor folded sideways. 3 Directorate troops vanished into darkness as an entire section of the chamber rotated like machinery inside a lock. But more soldiers kept coming. Veyr fired twice from behind cover. One shot shattered against armored plating. The second struck a visor joint and dropped a soldier hard enough to crack the floor. The return fire nearly tore his arm off. "These people brought an invasion force," he shouted toward Mara. "They brought recovery teams," she snapped back. "That's worse." Another explosion shook the cavern. The holographic map flickered violently. Then part of the northern hemisphere disappeared entirely. Ion 9's voice cut through the battle. "Vault shell compromised." Everything stopped for Mara. Just for 1 second. Veyr saw real fear finally break through her control. "No!" The hologram zoomed automatically toward the breach point. The Directorate siege drill had punched through the final armored layer above one of the refugee vaults. Emergency barriers were sealing around the rupture, but not fast enough. Atmosphere vented into space in glowing streams. Hundreds of cryogenic capsules nearest the breach were already dark. Dead before waking. The old mechanic stared at the display in horror. They hit Vault Theta. Mara stepped toward the map slowly. "How many losses?" Ion 9 answered instantly.
Bad move. They were warned. And now the planet is about to answer.
Current estimate, 11,406. Silence. Even the gunfire seemed distant for one impossible moment. 11,000 lives extinguished because someone wanted ownership. Mara closed her eyes once. When she opened them again, something inside her had hardened. "Ion," she said quietly, "prepare primary engines." The entire cavern froze. The old mechanic turned toward her. "Mara, we can't hold the shell. If you wake the primary engines now, half the ark could tear itself apart." "And if we don't," she replied, pointing toward the dead vault feed, "they'll keep drilling until millions die." Another voice suddenly echoed through the chamber. "Director Thalanor. Live transmission." "Custodian Kest," he said calmly, "you see now why resistance is irrational." His image appeared above the battlefield itself while soldiers continued fighting below it. "Stand down," he continued. "Arc 9 belongs to the future, not buried under ice beside ghosts." Mara looked up at him with open hatred now. "You murdered sleeping civilians. I sacrificed statistical losses to preserve a civilization-scale asset. You killed children." Thalan's expression never changed. "I preserved humanity's greatest creation." That answer chilled even Veyr. Because Thalan believed it. Mara's burned hands curled into fists. "You still think this is a machine?" "It is a machine." "No," she whispered. "It's a promise." The director smiled faintly. "Then it's time someone practical inherited it." The transmission vanished. Veyr looked around the cavern. Directorate soldiers were still advancing through the fixed gravity anchors. Human custodians were bleeding now, exhausted, losing ground inch by inch. And deep beneath them, Arc 9 was waking faster. The floor suddenly vibrated with a new rhythm. Not engines. Footsteps. Heavy. Immense. Every human in the chamber looked downward instinctively. Veyr felt it too. Something enormous was moving beneath the first layer. The sealed floor split apart again. Not cracking. Opening. A circular section kilometers wide slowly separated beneath the cavern, revealing darkness so deep it swallowed the crystal light completely. Wind roared upward from below, warm and alive. Then lights ignited in the abyss. Rows upon rows. Descending farther than Veyr could see. Ship bays. Fleet bays. Entire cities could have fit inside them. Ancient vessels rested there in silent suspension, thousands of them locked into docking cradles beneath the ark's surface. Some were sleek evacuation ships. Others were massive cargo carriers. And at the center of the abyss rested something so enormous Veyr's mind struggled to measure it. A black structure larger than mountains. A ship attached directly to the ark's core. The primary carrier. Arc-9's heart. And 9 spoke with deepening power as more systems awakened around the planet. Civilization continuity protocols active. Mara stared into the abyss below with grief written across her face. "We were supposed to stay asleep," she whispered. Then every screen in the cavern flashed white. A new signal had appeared beyond the rogue planet. Not Directorate. Not human. The extinction wave. Closer now. Far closer than 19 years. The signal spread across every active display in the cavern. At first Veyr Kallan thought it was sensor corruption. The data arriving from deep space looked wrong. Entire sections of the star map bent inward around moving pockets of darkness. Light itself warped as the black distortions advanced through the outer systems. Then one red marker vanished. Not blinked. Vanished. A living star system disappeared from the map in silence. Ion 9 spoke immediately. Extinction wave velocity recalculated. The pause lasted less than a second. Revised arrival window, 43 days. Nobody in the cavern breathed. 43 days. Not years. Not decades. 43 days until entire civilizations began dying. The Directorate soldiers stopped firing first. Then the humans. Even enemies could recognize the sound of a countdown. Veyr stared at the map while cold realization spread through him piece by piece. The rogue planet had not awakened because of greed alone. The drills. The breach. The violence. All of it had happened at the exact moment the extinction wave reached the outer sectors. Arc-9 had detected it. And now the machine was trying to move. Mara Kest looked older than before. Not physically. Historically. As if the weight of ancient failures had finally caught her. "Ion," she said quietly, "how many systems remain inside rescue range?" The AI processed instantly. 31 with current engine stability. Population estimate? Unknown. Probable total exceeds 11 billion. Silence crushed the cavern again. 11 billion lives. And above them, the Directorate was still trying to seize the Ark. Director Thalen Or's image returned across the crystal walls. For the first time since Veyr met him, the man looked uncertain. "You are telling me this threat is real?" 9 answered before Mara could. "Confirmed." The hologram shifted. The extinction wave appeared in terrifying detail now. Vast black gravitational fractures moved through space like wounds in reality itself. Worlds caught near them folded apart. Stars dimmed prematurely. Entire fleets vanished trying to outrun the distortions. Thalen's metallic eyes narrowed. Weaponized gravity collapse. "No," Mara said softly. "Natural." The Director stared at her. "That's impossible." That's why civilizations kept dying before they understood it. Another system vanished from the map. Closer this time. Veyr finally understood the scale of the old collapse wars. Humanity had not destroyed itself out of greed alone. It had happened because extinction was coming faster than rescue. And Arc-9 had been humanity's answer. Not conquest. Survival. The cavern shook violently. Above them, Directorate siege platforms continued drilling automatically under standing orders. One of the support crews clearly had not received updated commands. New fractures spread through the northern shell as cutting beams bit deeper into the Ark. Mara rounded on Thalen instantly. "Call them off." The Director hesitated. Just long enough. The northern hemisphere feed exploded white. A drill platform pierced fully into Vault Theta's neighboring chamber. Atmosphere vented into space in a roaring stream while thousands of cryogenic capsules froze solid instantly. More deaths. More silent coffins. Veyr saw something break inside Mara Kest. Not emotionally. Strategically. She stopped trying to negotiate. "Ion," she said calmly, "wake the carrier." Every human in the cavern turned toward her in shock. The old mechanic stepped forward. "Mara, if you activate the primary carrier at full synchronization." "I know. The Ark may not survive the jump." Mara looked toward the glowing map of dying systems. "It doesn't need to survive forever." Those words landed like a blade. It only needed to survive long enough. Ion 9 answered. Primary carrier synchronization beginning. Deep below the cavern, the abyss erupted with light. The colossal black structure beneath Arc-9 slowly detached from its docking cradle for the first time in centuries. Entire mountains of ancient machinery shifted against one another while gravitational engines thundered awake across the rogue planet. Outside, the ice field split apart for thousands of kilometers. Directorate ships scattered desperately as giant sections of crust unfolded like armored wings around the Ark. Towers rose from hidden trenches. Fleet bays opened to vacuum. Ancient evacuation ships powered on one after another inside the depths below. The dead world was becoming a vessel again. Thalen stared at the unfolding structures in visible disbelief. You intend to move the entire planet. Mara faced him directly. We intend to save who we can. The director's uncertainty hardened suddenly into anger. You would trust billions of lives to ancient human systems barely holding together? No, Mara replied. I trust the people who built them. That answer silenced him. Because even now, after war, collapse, greed, extinction, and centuries buried in darkness, humanity had still built this. Not a throne. Not a superweapon. A lifeboat. Alarms erupted throughout the cavern. The extinction wave had accelerated again. One of the distortions struck a distant relay system live on screen. The planet folded inward like paper dropped into deep water. Continents vanished. Oceans rose into the sky. Then nothing remained. Even the Directorate soldiers looked horrified now. Thalen spoke quietly this time. How many arcs survived? Mara's answer barely rose above a whisper. 1. The weight of that word filled the chamber completely. One last arc. One final moving refuge carrying the remains of civilizations through a dying galaxy. Thalen lowered his eyes briefly. Then he made his choice. All Directorate units, he ordered across open comms, cease extraction operations immediately. His soldiers froze. Begin civilian evacuation priority protocols. Upload all inhabited system coordinates to Arc-9 navigation control. Veyr stared at him in disbelief. You're surrendering? Thalen looked toward the disappearing stars on the hologram. No, he said quietly. I'm adapting. For the first time, Mara's expression softened slightly. Outside, the rogue planet began rising. Not upward. Forward. Ancient engines ignited beneath the crust, pushing Arc-9 through the void while entire mountain ranges unfolded into stabilization arrays around the primary carrier. The fleet bays below the cavern filled with movement now. Ancient rescue ships launched in streams of white light, carrying human custodians toward endangered systems. Directorate carriers repositioned themselves beside them. Not enemies anymore. Ion 9's voice deepened as more systems joined its awareness. Rescue trajectories calculated. The holographic map transformed. Not read now. 31 endangered systems connected by glowing routes spreading outward from Arc-9 like arteries carrying life through darkness. Mara stared at them silently. Veyr stepped beside her. You knew this day would come. Yes. And you stayed here waiting for it. She nodded once. Someone had to keep the lights on. The old mechanic laughed weakly somewhere behind them. Worst job in the galaxy. A faint smile touched Mara's face for the first time. Outside the cavern, the stars stretched. Arc-9 entered transit. The rogue planet vanished from its frozen orbit just as the extinction wave consumed the empty space it had occupied seconds earlier. Too close. Far too close. But alive. As the Ark crossed interstellar darkness toward the first dying system, millions of cryogenic chambers below finally began warming. Ancient survivors slowly awakened beneath artificial skies while rescue fleets spread outward ahead of them. Human. Alien. Doesn't matter anymore. The final transmission broadcast from Arc-9 echoed across every surviving communication network in the galaxy. Not a warning. Not a threat. A promise. Arc-9 spoke the words in a voice older than empires. No world dies alone.
This is why humans win in HFY stories. Not just power, not just war. A promise kept until the end.